They show up in almost every culture that has ever existed. In the Bible, in Greek myth, in Norse legend, in the stories of people from Patagonia to Polynesia. Giants. Enormous beings who walked the earth before us, who built things we still cannot explain, who were defeated or driven out or simply disappeared. We write them off as folklore, as the invention of people who simply did not know any better. But what if they were not just stories? What if giants were real, and the tales we keep telling about them are the last surviving memory of something that actually happened? Welcome back. This is a story that goes much deeper than you think. Giants appear in nearly every human tradition as the first inhabitants of the world. Ancient beings who predate humanity, vast and terrible. In Norse mythology, they are the Jotnar, creatures of ice and fire who existed before the gods themselves. In Greek myth, the Titans and the Gigantes waged war against the Olympians in a battle so catastrophic it reshaped the earth. In the Bible, the Nephilim walked the land before the Great Flood, described as the offspring of angels and human women, beings of enormous size and power. The pattern is always the same. Giants come first, then they are defeated, buried, or driven into the margins of the world. And then humans inherit the earth. It sounds like allegory, but buried inside these stories is something far older than any of the texts that recorded them. The earliest written reference to giants comes from Sumer, one of the first civilizations on Earth, around 2100 BCE. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes a being called Humbaba, a monstrous guardian of the cedar forest, enormous and ancient, placed there by the gods to protect what was sacred. Gilgamesh and his companion Enkidu traveled deep into forbidden territory to find him and kill him. A hero, a dangerous journey into unknown territory. A giant guardian standing between the human world and something well beyond it. A kill. The story is nearly 4,000 years old, and it already feels like a retelling of something even older. In ancient Greece, people found enormous bones buried in the earth, bones far too large to belong to any known animal. They concluded these were the remains of giants, and they were not entirely wrong. What they were finding were fossilized bones of prehistoric megafauna, woolly mammoths, giant rhinoceroses, cave bears. Without paleontology to explain it, the only available answer was giants. Ancient people looked at a mammoth skull and saw a cyclops. One large nasal cavity read as one enormous eye socket. Standing over that skull in a dry riverbed, the interpretation felt completely obvious. Folklorist Adrienne Mayer documented this connection at length. She argues that fossil discoveries across the ancient Mediterranean directly shaped the mythology of giants, titans, and monsters. The bones were real. The stories grew around them to explain what nobody could otherwise account for. But fossils do not explain everything, because the giant myths are not simply about large creatures. They carry a very specific story. The giants were here first, and then they lost. Across cultures that had no contact with each other, the same narrative keeps appearing. A race of ancient beings, powerful and terrible, defeated by younger and cleverer gods or heroes, and pushed out of the world they once owned. Some researchers think this pattern points to something real beneath the mythology. Not biological giants, but a cultural memory of displacement. When modern humans spread into Europe around 40,000 years ago, they encountered Neanderthals, a different kind of human who had already been living there for hundreds of thousands of years. Neanderthals were stocky, strong, and by some reconstructions, impressively built. They were not monsters, but they were different, and over thousands of years of contact, they disappeared. We do not know exactly what happened between them. There is evidence of interbreeding, and most people alive today carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA in their genome. But the Neanderthals, as a distinct population, vanished around 40,000 years ago, right as modern humans arrived in larger numbers. Some researchers have asked whether the giant myths, those persistent stories of ancient, powerful beings who ruled the earth before us and were then defeated, might carry a dim echo of that encounter. Passed down through hundreds of generations, distorted almost beyond recognition by time, but still somehow surviving in the stories we tell each other. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. In almost every giant myth, the giant is not purely evil. He is just in the way. Humbaba is placed in the forest by the gods to guard it. He is doing his job. Goliath is a soldier following orders on a battlefield he did not choose. The Jotnar in Norse mythology are not simple villains. Odin's own mother is a giantess. The gods intermarry with giants, fight alongside giants, and in some versions of the Norse apocalypse, the giants win. The further you dig, the more the giants start to look like the original owners of a world that was slowly taken from them. And the heroes who defeat them start to look a little less heroic with every layer you peel back. David killing Goliath is celebrated across centuries as a miracle. But Goliath never chose his size. He did not start the war. He stood in a battle line and was killed by a boy with a sling. And the story of his people was written entirely by the people who defeated them. That particular detail tends to get left out of the telling. That is how history works. The victors write the story, and the defeated become the monsters. Giants might be the oldest version of that pattern in all of human storytelling. Ancient, powerful, incomprehensible, and ultimately erased. Their names forgotten with time. Their great structures crumbled slowly into dust and rubble. And all that remains is the story told by the people who replaced them. A story in which the giant had it coming. So the next time you hear about giants, in scripture or in myth, or carved into the stone walls of some ancient temple, do not be too quick to dismiss it. Because behind the enormous footprints and the thundering voice and the bones buried deep in the earth, there might be something true. A memory. A story humanity has been telling itself for 40,000 years about who was here before us, what we did to them, and why we needed to turn them into monsters to live with what we had done. Some doors are simply better left closed.